Welcome to another episode of Explicitly Unbiased. Yes, it's a little bit different setup. Caleb is out on vacation. He's enjoying himself, but that doesn't mean the news stops in the sports world. No, I got a lot of topics to go over, plus week 3 of college football. I would tell Caleb to run the intro, but I got it this time. Run that intro. Alrighty, everybody. It is week 3 of college football, but there's a lot of things we're going to cover. Obviously, my Heisman report card, my top 5 teams in college football right now, and also some teams that need to bounce back from their week 2 disappointments or losses. And finally, we round things up with notable matchups that are going on in week 3 of college football. But first things first, we got to wrap up some household things to do, some tidiness, I guess Caleb would always say. And first thing we got to talk about actually is not college football related. Kawhi Leonard has a $20 million deal, and it's going under a little bit of the investigation from the NBA because it is seeming that it's kind of like a no-show job. What that really means is that he got paid I believe it was $7 million for at this point 4 years straight for $28 million total, and it was another $20 million, $28 million total, and then $20 million also that was like given to him or his uncle, I believe, and it was for him endorsing this like green energy or like environmental group. And he did not once endorse this product. He did not once tweet about it. He did not do any commercials for this organization at all, but he received $28 million for it. And it seems like the NBA is going to be investigating them and the Clippers because I believe there is some repercussions in the fact that they're manipulating the cap space. The worst thing that could possibly come out of this is Kawhi Leonard's contract gets voided and he becomes a free agent. And mind you, Kawhi Leonard is still a notable top 10, some may argue top 5 player when healthy in the NBA. And it's crazy to think that the dude had a $28 million, like essentially no show job. And the big reason why this is a story is not because, you know, he endorsed a product that Steve Ballmer and their company allowed to happen. It's more of the sense that he didn't do anything to endorse this product. There are other NBA stars that have endorsed products that I know Jason Tatum has an endorsement deal with somebody who works also alongside the Celtics, but he shoots commercials and he actually provides a service for them. So that's okay. Where Kawhi Leonard is just getting paid almost $50 million to literally not shoot a commercial or not even tweet about this company at all. And he just received all this money for a no-show job. And I believe the NBA is going to be doing a investigation. Now, granted, without David Stern being the commissioner, you're hardly ever going to see some real true hammer coming down on this because of the fact that Adam Silver has been a little bit more lax in these policies, and he probably understands that the Clippers are not the first one to do it. They weren't the first, and they're definitely not going to be the last. But it would be really interesting that if he actually asserts himself and creates some sort of punishment for this, because like it is manipulating the cap to an extent. But Kawhi Leonard probably doesn't really care. He got $28 million, and then he'll, if worse comes to worse, which not even worse because you gave Kawhi all this extra money to manipulate the cap for the past 6 years. You've only won, I believe, 3 series in the NBA playoffs. So, really, what did you do with all this to keep Kawhi there in LA? But it'd be really interesting to see if they actually terminate his contract. Now that's kind of wrapping up with the notable news and headlines. I mean, obviously, we just had Thursday Night Football. Green Bay looks like a dominating force right now in the NFL. I mean, that Michael Parsons trade nullified, I think, a lot of the big concerns I had for their secondary. A good pass rush always eliminates a bad secondary. It seems like their secondary wasn't all too bad. I mean, they did have a wide receiver starting for them at slot corner, but interesting fact from that is the fact that Brett Favre won a Super Bowl at 27 years old. Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl at 27 years old at Green Bay. Jordan Love is now 27 years old. Does that mean history is literally going to repeat itself? You drafted a quarterback in the first round when you already had a franchise guy there, and you got his replacement, and now he's 27 years old and gonna go to the Super Bowl. That would actually be crazy to see that this trade not only pays off because if Green Bay wins a Super Bowl, the Micah Parsons trade automatically is a win for them, no matter what Dallas does. The only way Dallas will ultimately come on top from this now in this trade would be if they drafted two future Hall of Famers and they end up going to the Super Bowl or knocking off the Packers to the Super Bowl. Highly unlikely, but I did like the fight that Dallas did put up against the Eagles, despite not having Micah there and only losing by 4 points to the previous Super Bowl champs. But very interesting to see. It seems like Jaden Daniels is going through a sophomore slump. With lack of production from Terry and also Debo Samuel didn't really show up in this game. Um, Not really good play calling. Cliff Kingsbury tends to regress year over year, just whether he's a head coach or an offensive coordinator anywhere. He tends to regress year after year. His best year is always his first year. And after that, he never really kind of maintains that status. And maybe people have tape on Jaden Daniels, which I had a little bit of a concern entering this year because usually rookie quarterbacks their first year tend to be the best, and then usually if they showcase that much talent, they do regress. Robert Griffin III, also alongside his injury. I mean, C.J. Stroud right now has really regressed so far. He is not looking at all very improved. Bryce Young is a guy who this year is not looking too good either, and same with Jaden Daniels. I think that this year may be a little bit of a lackluster year for the Commanders out there. Other notable news: USF is a notable now powerhouse in college football. Not only did they take down Boise State, who a lot of people favored to go into the college football playoffs and win out the Mountain West, but also the fact that they just took down Florida. Now, granted, this is a Billy Napier Florida, and Florida has been unbelievably inconsistent since Urban Meyer has left and but they do have some very young good talent over there. Their quarterback over there is a legitimate Heisman contender, and the fact that USF has now gone back-to-back weeks and taken down back-to-back top 25 opponents, they 100% deserve it. And they're facing Miami this week. It's going to be a notable game that I'm going to be going over, and definitely their head coach is going to get he's going to be the hottest commodity this offseason, especially in the college football realm. His And if he doesn't go and USF keeps him, his coordinators are going to get picked apart. Same with his team is going to get picked apart. They're a wonderful Cinderella story and big reason why I love college football because of that. But let's go into the Heisman report card here. Obviously, last week, if you tuned in, I gave Arch Manning an F, Cade Klubnik a D, Garrett Nussmeyer a B plus, John Mateer got an A, Dante Moore got a B, Thomas Castellanos got a B minus and a B, Jaden Mayava out there in USC got a B minus, and JKS out there, the true freshman quarterback for Cal, got an A minus. If I'm gonna update this list, fully believe Tommy Castellanos. He's putting up wins, but the thing is like his stat line is very ugly. I am not really been that big of a fan. I think their rushing attack as a whole has looked really good, but I don't think him as a Heisman contender, true Heisman contender, is up there right now. He's in the running for it, like a good long shot, I would say, because they're gonna have notable games. He's gonna play Miami. He's gonna play Florida and stuff like that. So he already has a. He's gonna have a good resume of wins, but we just need that Heisman moment to happen. Cade, I mean, back to back, I'm gonna give him another D. It was just not a good showing against Troy. They were down in that game as well too. Just he's slowly also falling off a bit. I think that also the first overall pick contention for him and Arch Manning were fighting for that. And speaking of Arch Manning, I'm gonna give him at best a C minus. It wasn't a good showing despite the 4 touchdowns. The tail of tape really showed how poorly he played in that game. Actually, I mean, you're talking barely over 50% passing completions, and you're going against a team that isn't should be a D1 team in San Jose State. They are not that good of a squad. Texas should have out Jimmy and John them big time, and the fact that he had that little and that piss poor of a showing kind of to me is very telling of maybe like he's gonna have to go for like 400 yards, 300 yards, and have a really good like upper 60s to 70s percentile passing rate. Because 50 over barely over 50% against a San Jose State team that isn't that good is just not what we're looking for, especially in a guy like Arch Manning, who was the clear favorite in the preseason for winning the Heisman. And we did talk about the Heisman curse. Most preseason favorites literally never win it. Um, Outside of that, Garrett Nussmeyer did what Garrett Nussmeyer. He's just been very consistent so far. The thing with Garrett, though, I do believe is that once he has his Heisman moment, he will be the favorite. Because he plays in the SEC, he plays against tougher opponents, he's going to go head to head against good quarterbacks. He's already looked way better than Cade off week one, and he's just very consistent. What you see is what you're going to get. And that defense for LSU has literally eliminated any concerns I have for them. They are a legitimate threat in the SEC thanks to that defense. A guy who I think is going to win the Heisman this year, and he was a sneaky favorite for me preseason wise, with a solid win against Michigan, John Mateer. John Mateer is that dude. He has been absolutely crushing it lately. He's been stepping up to competition. I mean, him and Arch Manning, that QB battle is going to be sick. He plays in the SEC this year. Oklahoma has a rich history of not just quarterbacks, but Heisman winning players there. I mean, we're talking about guys like Sam Bradford. We got talking about Baker Mayfield when he was there, and also Kyler Murray. So they do have that little bit of a pedigree when it comes to Heisman contenders. I think his showing against Michigan, a notable team, they are a legitimate team. I will give him another A minus. I think he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He did not lose his team the game. He definitely was the big reason why they won the game against Michigan. So another solid performance by him. Kind of gonna wrap these three guys up in once because they just absolutely look stunning. I think Jaden Mayava, if he continues to put up these numbers, especially against good opponents, he also may be a Heisman favorite. USC also has a pedigree of having Heisman winners. I mean, I believe they are tied for first for the most amount of Heisman winners. And on top of that, you also have their head coach has produced nothing but Heisman winners when he was at Oklahoma over there. And he is just another immensely talented quarterback. The only issue that I have with that is the fact that he hasn't really played anybody. Georgia Southern is nobody, really. Yes, he put up an impressive stat line, but it's still, I need to see it against good competition before I have him take over John Mateer or Garrett Nussmeyer. Dante Moore still solid as usual. I think this is a really strong Oregon squad. They surrounded him with some really good pieces, and he's probably the most talented quarterback at Oregon for a very long time. Probably since, I would say, overall athleticism, since I would say Marcus Mariota. I think he's a little bit better on the ground than Justin Herbert was, and I do believe he has a lot of arm talent. But a solid B showing for him. A AKS, look, if you haven't heard about this guy out there in Cal, this dude is an absolute stud. A plus for him. I mean, he has been absolutely crushing it. He looks like what everybody wanted Tua to look like. He's 6'3", 220 pounds, but he's really built. Like, he's really fitting into his body right now as a true freshman. And he also has a little bit of a story, the fact that he enrolled into Oregon and immediately hit the transfer portal to play at Cal. And he's been absolutely crushing it. I'm absolutely a huge fan of JKS out there, the true freshman quarterback, lefty out of Cal. Now we're going to go into the college report card after week two. Texas, I mean, I'm going to give them a solid B because their defense still showed up. I'm not a big fan of Arch Manning still because of the inconsistency of him and also under 60% passing. That is not a good sign. Florida State continues to be Florida State. They're absolutely great. They have been looking very solid. They're a contender. I mean, Clemson better watch out. Clemson had a nice bounce back. I would say that too. They bounced back after a rough week one, and they also came back against Troy. They had no business going down to Troy like that, but I'm gonna give them probably a C minus on that grade. LSU's an A. LSU's a legitimate threat. They have a solid defense, and they look unbelievably talented all around. They're a very solid team, but they're going to be tested. It's the SEC. They're eventually going to be tested. Oregon, solid B for them as well too. They just are just way too talented. They're way too stacked. They're very, very good. Penn State, I think, is fake. I think after week two, I'm not a fan of Penn State. They are absolutely like a C minus team. I think that Oregon's going to beat them. I think Ohio State's going to beat them on a down year for Ohio State. And I may even think Michigan or even Nebraska may steal a game from them if they play them throughout the year. I am not a big fan of Penn State this year. I'm about to look up their schedule real quick and see how they look like for the rest of the year. So they're playing Villanova this week, and I mean, that's just nothing. They should win that by a million points. Then they play Oregon, And then later on, they'll play Ohio State. They'll play Indiana. They'll play Nebraska as well too. They don't play Michigan this year, but Nebraska, Indiana, and Ohio State and Oregon are going to be 3.5 to 4 games that I would be very concerned if I was a Penn State fan, because I'm just not a true believer in what Penn State has brought. Uh, Against they did not look that solid the first quarter to quarter and a half against FIU. I mean, going into half, they were only up 10-0 against FIU, and that is at all not a good look. Miami, though, Miami is a legitimate team. Miami Hurricanes are absolutely studs there. I am criticized Carson Beck entering this season, but Miami has a really nice schedule going forward, too. I mean, they're going to be playing Florida. That Florida team is no joke. They do have talent. They're going to play Florida State, too. They're going to play SMU down the line. And that's just going to be solid for them. If they keep racking up these wins, I mean, you started the season beating Notre Dame. You cleaned house against BCU and not Boston College. I believe, I don't know how to really say it. Bethune Cookman Wildcats like absolutely cooked them in. But they're having a really tough game because UCF, I mean, they're getting an A plus. They play the opponents that they put on their schedule. They play two notable teams that were potentially playoff bound and absolutely showed up. I mean, good for South Florida out there looking like some absolute studs out there. I mean, when they beat Boise State 34-7 going against Florida, that Billy Napier team, I've just never been a fan of him as a coach. But solid showing all around, but this is their true test. And mind you, this would be their last test really for the whole year, because if they run the table, they beat Miami, they beat Boise State, and they beat Florida. I mean, every team that they played against was two of them were ranked in the top 15. All three were in the top 25. Three of them, preseason wise, were all going to go to the playoffs or have notable playoff contention. And the rest of the year, you're talking about South Carolina State, Charlotte, North Texas, Florida Atlantic, Memphis, UTSA, Navy, UAB, and Rice. They may literally run the table and go undefeated this year if they somehow beat Miami. And it's kind of weird to say that they may actually beat them. And it's a very solid team. They beat Miami. That head coach is like, bye bye Billy Napier. Like, Florida is probably going to hire him. And if they run the tables, can you imagine that they have a legitimate contention to say that if they go undefeated, they beat three teams that were in the top 25 when they faced them? That could be arguably a top four seed team in college football playoffs. Would be insane to think this year. But I mean, Miami's just too strong. Miami looks really nice this year. I think they maybe actually be the favorites for me now in the ACC. Clemson, I still a little bit, maybe a little bit too much of a believer in them because they're super talented too. But Miami, I mean, Carson Beck fits this offense really well. They finally stepped up their defense, and they look immensely talented. And Miami too. Like I said, if they run the table, that could be a top one seed, a top three seed in college football playoffs. And I absolutely love that team. Also, Oklahoma, they beat Michigan. Michigan was ranked higher against them. They were 15th, and they were, I believe, 18th or 19th entering that game. I love Oklahoma. Oklahoma was a really good team. I think they are a serious team. They just needed a quarterback entering this year, and the fact that they brought the offensive coordinator and the quarterback from Florida State, they're a super well-rounded team this year. And those are going to be my grades for those notable teams. USF, I mean, like super sneaky right now, and I'm absolutely a big fan. I love when college football has these moments. Um, but now we're going to go into some bounce back games. So bounce back games, obviously teams that may have suffered a loss and looking to bounce back. And I'm also going to be telling you the lines. Texas State goes to Arizona State. Arizona State is favored by 14.5 points. Arizona State losing to the worst team in the SEC last year. And Arizona State needs to put these things together. I love Arizona State. We have Caleb, who's a fan of them this year. And I think Arizona State can still run the table. They're now unranked after losing to Mississippi State. Mississippi State may have gotten away with a win there. I mean, I don't really believe in Mississippi State. I don't think they're the best team even in Mississippi, especially considering how talented Ole Miss is and how powerful the SEC is this year. Arizona State just needs to have a dominating win against Texas State. And Texas State just won the I-35 battle against UTSA, so they have a lot to prove in this game. But Arizona State needs to get things clicking. That offense, weapon wise, and the skill position is super talented. But that offensive line is still a huge concern for me. I need Arizona State to at least win by 3 scores on this game. Florida, after losing to USF, is going to be playing at LSU, number 3 LSU. LSU is a 9.5 point favorite on there, so 3 field goals or almost two. What was it? Easily a touchdown and a field goal, like favored in this game. LSU is probably going to win this game easily. As much as I love the quarterback out there in Florida, Billy Napier, I'm just not a fan of him. I really don't think he's a good coach for a blue blood team that is Florida. I think LSU's defense is going to run wild against Florida. I will not be surprised if LSU wins this game by 17 points. And Garrett Nussmeier may have a Heisman moment this game. He may be beating Florida with 3 touchdowns and a great 71% completion percentage on this one. I've always talked about how I don't like directional schools. Central Michigan goes to at Michigan. Michigan is favored by 27.5 points, almost a 4 touchdown game. Michigan needs to bounce back. Bryce Underwood looked very shaky as a true freshman and had a little bit of a shouting match as well too with his head coach. Michigan has to look really well. He has to look like how he looked like as his first game of the season, but I'm expecting Michigan to bounce back. They should win this game by 4 touchdowns at least, or 4 scores. Now into our featured matchups. We have a lot. I mean, listen, week 3 is amazing. Kick things off, we got Wisconsin at Alabama. Alabama is favored by 20.5 points. This is going back into some test games. I mean, Wisconsin was a feared team in the Big Ten, in the old Big Ten. And, it would be a notable win for Alabama. I expect Alabama to win this game, though. Georgia at Tennessee. I believe this is the big game that's going to be showcased. UGA it's a 3.5 point favorite over Tennessee, and they're playing at Tennessee. Now, Tennessee's very happy that Nico left, and a lot of y'all are kind of on our side with that. I've been very critical about Nico leaving Tennessee, and it seems that he was kind of exposed now going to UCLA, and they did a literal trade out there for Tennessee and UCLA, but I got Georgia. Georgia's way too talented. It's a really good Georgia team this year, and they are going to be up there in contention for the playoffs. They may win the SEC this year. They have their quarterback, Stockton, really fits their offense this year, and they have a lot of wide receivers. Don't get it twisted. I may say that Georgia's best room at their school right now is the wide receiver room, but that team is loaded still. We have Texas A&M at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a touchdown favorite in this one. I fully expect Notre Dame to win this game. It'll get them back into the college football playoffs talks after losing to Miami. And they are a very well-rounded, solid team. I do need to see a little bit more out of their quarterback, though. They do lose a lot in losing their quarterback, Riley. Texas A&M, until proven otherwise, they just always been inconsistent. Ever since they've been to the SEC, I mean, they had notable wins when they had Johnny Manziel there, but under Jimbo and all this, it's been a team of what if, right? What if these big 5-star, teams that they constructed year in, year out ever pay off, if they're ever going to win, if they ever get a quarterback, if they're going to finally beat big teams. I don't know. I'm just not a big believer in that. I'm going to take Notre Dame, and they're probably going to win. They're probably going to win by 10 on that one. South Florida and Miami, the true big game of the week. Miami is a 17.5 point favorite. I would love South Florida to win. That would be absolutely fun and amazing for that to happen, because I think that they literally can go undefeated and be the talk of the town for this whole year. The 2025 college football season will be wrapped up on South Florida if they win this game. They have an easy schedule the rest of the way. And in college football, you're very rewarded if you start off very fast and very strong. But I think Miami's just too big, too fast, too strong. I think they are a very well-rounded team, especially with Carson Beck there. I mean, Carson Beck is no slouch. He was getting first-round nods. He was a preseason Heisman favorite last year as well, too. and he is now fit. He's very much fit into this offense. He didn't really fit that Georgia offense. And we got last two games right here. And two more games to wrap this up. Vanderbilt out South Carolina. Now, South Carolina is barely favored by only 5.5 points on that. Not even a touchdown favorite, not even a 2 field goal favorite on this one. South Carolina has, I believe, probably the best quarterback in the nation right now in Lenore Sanders. I believe, or Lenore Sellers, I believe. That's how you say his name. Yeah, Lenore Sellers. He's an absolute dog, absolute stud, but Vandy got on squad out there. I mean, the fact that they're not even a 2 field goal favorite, 5.5 point favorite on that one, really goes to show you that, their quarterback out there in Vanderbilt, I believe, is Daniel or Pavava. Diego Pavaya. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but Diego is a solid player. And even on the road, the fact that they're only a 5.5 point favorite, I kind of expect Lenora Sellers, but like Diego's a dog. Like, he has stepped up in big moments a lot of times they're the big reason why they beat Alabama last year out there in Vanderbilt. And to wrap up these games, Minnesota at California. Minnesota favored on the road by only 2.5 though. But that dude JKS, like, this dude is absolutely a stud. If you want me to read off his stats in his last game, he was real quick line. 27 for 38 on 71% completion percentage. No touchdown, but he had, I believe, a rushing touchdown on the game against Texas Southern. But, I mean, obviously it's Texas Southern. But, like, this is going to be a really good matchup. I mean, like, if he's going to go 3 games in a row by being very consistent and been very good, I would, like I said, do not be shocked if him as a true freshman is going to be running the tables for as a legitimate Heisman contender this week, and by the end of the year as well too. So just to wrap things up on that, I got Alabama beating Wisconsin. I got Georgia beating Tennessee. Georgia a 3.5 point favorite. Texas A&M losing to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 7 point favorite. South Florida against Miami. For the memes, I guess, I would love that South Florida would win because I think they're going to go undefeated this year if they beat Miami. Miami's a 17.5 point favorite, but my heart says South Florida. My head says Miami. Vanderbilt, and led by Diego, is going to go against the number 11 team in the country, South Carolina, a 5.5 point favorite. South Carolina is, and Minnesota is 2.5 point favorite against California. I got California actually winning that game as an underdog, and I got South Carolina winning that game against Vanderbilt, and I'm going to give them only a 3-point game. I think Vanderbilt's going to cover on that one. But that does it for our college football week 3 picks. And Caleb is going to be out. I think he'll be back next week after we do my Sunday show. So the Sunday show, I'm going to be covering it here on Explicitly Unbiased. Wrap it up and getting my instant reaction right after some of the games, if not most of the games for Sunday Night Football. And going to tell you my instant reaction about those things. Kind of doing this little setup like how I am here behind my desk. My nice little laptop, and I'm going to be running down all the notable news and notes after week 2 in the NFL, and then obviously watching alongside y'all with the Sunday Night Football game. And then me and Caleb are going to be discussing come Tuesday morning. We're going to be talking about everything that happened in week 2 of the NFL and obviously week 3 in college football. And of course, thank y'all so much, my explicitly unbiased amigos, for always tuning in, liking, subscribing, ring that notification bell button. Follow us on our Facebook. We're really big on Facebook. We want to make sure so that way you guys get over 100 likes there. It really, really helps us out a lot. Follow us on Instagram, explicitly unbiased, all over the place. If you want to hear the audio version of this, we have a Spotify as well too. It's explicitly unbiased. And thank y'all so much for all your comments, all the positivity, and even those who like to debate with us in the comment section. We absolutely love it too. Like, we are just doing this for absolute fun. And we love interacting with y'all, especially when it comes to certain talking points that we love to discuss and our opinions on those. As always, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Adios, amigos.